Hey everyone, and welcome to my channel. I trust you are all having a wonderful day. Before we begin the video, please be sure to hit subscribe. Now, let's start the video. They called it the quiet hour, the fragile, somber space between midnight and dawn, when the hospital's fluorescent drone seemed to possess its own heartbeat. For Kelly, the quiet hour now felt like a vast ocean she had to navigate with no paddles. She sat in a stiff plastic chair by the windowless ICU room and stared at the porthole of the door, as if its shape might shift and reveal a simpler way forward. Inside, Mark slept, or more accurately, machines performed the act of sleeping for him. The ventilator's gentle cadence, the infusion pump's steady beat, the monitor's jagged line that rose and fell in detached symmetry. The diagnosis had landed 2 days earlier, like an overturned life. It was sharp, clinical, and impossible to cushion. Aggressive carcinoma, the oncologist had stated, with the practiced gentleness of someone who had delivered the same apologetic message enough times to construct a kind of lexicon for grief. Kelly had nodded. She recalled nodding repeatedly, an automatic mechanism closing a door beneath her. There had been terms she barely grasped, and a plan that charted a future she did not wish to imagine. "We'll begin treatment," they had assured her. "There's still a chance." The clinical words kept dropping like pebbles into a pond that no longer showed a ripple. The cameras had set up camp outside the hospital after the first statement was leaked. A mistaken post on a social media manager's phone. A well-intentioned friend on the wrong side of discretion. Within hours, there were bright lights outside the building and reporters with microphones that swarmed like insects. Kelly's public persona was built on cheerful mornings and a carefully crafted genuineness. And now, everything she was, the humor, the witty banter, the warmth, had to coexist with something intensely private and raw. She let the sterile air of the room wash over her. There was no clear narrative in unbearable moments. Grief had a way of splintering itself into small, silent rituals. Kelly checked the IV drip, straightened the blanket on Mark's knees, and pressed her thumb against his hand to feel the warmth, the lingering breath that signaled life. Even when breathing itself was mechanically sustained, she read aloud to him because the sound of her voice anchored her to the world. Sometimes she read old scripts they had cherished, lines that had once been fractured by laughter. Other times, she read nothing, letting only the sound of words merge with the steady rhythm of the ICU. Mark's hands had always been so expressive, a conductor's canvas for the life he lived before the illness took hold. A life of studio sets, late-night pizza boxes, and a family that bounced and bickered and made the mundane shine. He had been the sort of man who could make a room erupt in laughter with a lopsided grin and then, with the same ease, pull a chair close to someone in need. When he first opened his eyes in the emergency room, a hospital gown draped on his shoulders, Kelly had embraced him, as if the world might capsize if she did not hold him there. He had smiled at her then, small and dazed, and said, "You look like you haven't slept in a decade." Tearfully, Kelly had laughed because there was no better response than humor at that time. Outside their bubble of machines and soft-spoken doctors, the world trembled. Fans congregated in online threads, comments, and tribute posts. "Prayers for Mark," the headlines declared. Though the initial headlines were carelessly blunt and cruel, 2 stations ran with the phrase "on life support" in bold text over grainy stock photos of a hospital room. That phrase held a terrible finality, and it transformed private anguish into a public spectacle. Social media exploded. Conspiracy theories, misinterpretations, and kindness all jumbled together. There were people who shared their own grief at the sight of the family's photos, and strangers who left bouquets at the studio gate. The atmosphere of celebrity could be comforting, with strangers offering candles, thoughts, and prayers from across the nation. It could also be merciless, like 100 tiny forks trying to pick open locked doors. The couple's oldest memories replayed in Kelly's mind like a movie she couldn't pause. She remembered the first time they met on a professional level. The immediate sparks that had nothing to do with the cameras. They had found a harmony and built an entire life around it. A house filled with art, children, and the hum of ordinary days. Mark had always been the kind of partner who foresaw the small, gentle needs: a sandwich made perfectly, a tired shoulder massaged away. Kelly had been the constant marquee light, generous and bright. Their public union had been a type of marriage performed in two different languages: the intimate, domestic dialect and the broader public dialect of fame. The cruelty of the present moment was that their private language, the one of whispered jokes, midnight feedings, and small household disagreements, was now being translated for the whole world to see.